Calling it a mountain is a misnomer, it's actually a group of peaks of varying heights. The main peak, Nie Mountain, stands several thousand meters high, majestic and reaching for the clouds, shrouded in spiritual energy.
The surrounding smaller mountains are dwarfed in comparison to Nie Mountain. The abundant spiritual energy surrounding Nie Mountain imbued each of the surrounding peaks with unique peculiarities.
Some mountain peaks were cultivated by Nie sect with numerous spirit herbs, tended by the sect's disciples. Others contained higher-grade spiritual materials. These peaks were also mined by Nie sect disciples.
The peak where the Nie family mined Firecloud Stone was, amongst the numerous smaller mountains surrounding Nie Mountain, the most unremarkable. Nie Tian and Nie Tian arrived at the Nie family's Firecloud Stone mine in the afternoon. Miss.
It's not yet time to tally the Firecloud Stone. Why have you suddenly come? Nie family steward at the mine entrance looked curiously at Nie Tian, who was accompanied by a child, his heart filled with questions.
This isn't about tallying the Firecloud Stone. I've brought my nephew to see the mine. Nie Tian smiled gently. See the mine? Nie Shang was startled, even more perplexed, because the mine was dangerous.
Only children who had made serious mistakes within the Nie family were ever brought there. Nie Tian bringing Nie Tian here, under the pretense of letting him see the world, left Nie Shang utterly baffled. Nie Tian offered no further explanation.
After greeting Nie Shang, she pulled Nie Tian along, heading straight for the mine shaft. Miss, this child is too young. If anything happens to him in the mine, I can't be held responsible, Nie Shang hurriedly said. If anything does happen.
Nie Tian replied. Hearing this, Nie Shang said no more, letting Nie Tian and Nie Tian proceed together into the depths of the mine. Inside the mine, Nie Tian looked around curiously. Is this where the Firecloud Stone is?
Deep within the mine, Nie Tian breathed, her eyes filled with worry. Remember, you must be obedient and stay close to me. Because of over-mining, many parts of the mine are dangerously hollowed out, and sometimes they collapse due to tremors.
I know where it's safe and where it's dangerous. You mustn't leave my side. Nie Tian looked up at the large, angular stones hanging from the cave ceiling, 5 or 6 meters above his head, and quickly nodded.
Those stones weighed over 1,000 jin. If they fell, he would be instantly crushed. Come on. Nie Tian gripped his arm, leading him down the long, dark, winding stone passage. Nie Tian, his curiosity piqued, looked around cautiously as he followed.
Good day, miss. What brings you here? Miss, be careful. It's unsafe inside. There was a collapse just a few days ago. Greetings, miss. Along the way, many of the collateral branches of the Nie family,
as well as laborers employed by the Nie family, greeted Nie Tian respectfully upon seeing her. Nie Tian smiled and nodded to each person, urging them to be careful and to avoid accidents at all costs.
Nie Tian could tell that those mining the Firecloud Stone in the mine truly respected Nie Tian. Those who mine Firecloud Stone in the mine are all people of hardship. Each one who enters knows what they face. Nie Tian sighed softly, speaking to Nie Tian.
Little Tian, if you're not accepted by the Nie sect, after you turn 15, your second grandfather might send you here to mine Firecloud Stone as well. Is it only the collateral branches of the Nie family that are assigned here? Nie Tian asked.
That was the case before, but it may not be so in the future. Nie Tian shook her head, her expression somber. The mortality rate in the mine is high. Every so often, someone loses their life here.
And the Nie family's main responsibility is actually to mine Firecloud Stone for the Nie sect. All other family matters are secondary to this. In recent years, the easily accessible Firecloud Stones have been exhausted,
forcing us to delve deeper and deeper into the mines, making it increasingly dangerous. The elders from the collateral branches of our clan have done everything in their power to prevent their children and grandchildren from working in the mines.
But the mines are the very foundation of the Nie family. People fear death, and the laborers hired by the family are unwilling to venture deep into the tunnels without the supervision of clan members. However,
we need to pay tribute to the Nie sect with a sufficient quantity of Firecloud Stones every year. If we fail to do so, the Nie sect may no longer favor the Nie family. Without the protection of the Nie sect,
the Nie family would struggle to survive in Black Cloud City. Therefore, the mines are paramount to the family. Clan members must always oversee the mines. Now that your second grandfather is in charge, has spoken of reforms.
And direct descendants will also be assigned to work here. Pausing for a moment, Nie Tian spoke with deep meaning. Since your grandfather's downfall, even before he relinquished the position of clan head, I have been coming to the mines frequently.
Now that our family's influence has weakened, if you fail to become a disciple of the Nie sect, you will inevitably end up here. Nie Tian lowered his head, thought carefully, and then nodded slightly. I understand. Let's go, Archie.
Continuing deeper into the mine. After a while, Nie Tian noticed that the passage leading into the mountain became increasingly narrow, and the distance between the ceiling and the walls grew shorter and shorter.
He also observed that the number of laborers along the way decreased, each figure gaunt and haggard, their faces lifeless and somber. "Miss, it's dangerous ahead, you'd best not go." A thin,
dark-skinned middle-aged man suddenly appeared from around another bend in the stone passage, offering a well-meaning warning. "Mine shaft number 73 collapsed 8 days ago, killing 2 men. We only just finished clearing it."
Nie Tian stopped immediately. Her face was grave as she hesitated for a moment before saying, "Thank you for the warning. I'll go take a look and I'll be right back. Please be extremely careful. I want to accompany you," the man said fearfully.
"You go about your business." Nie Tian nodded. The thin, dark-skinned man disappeared in an instant. "The further in you go, the higher the death rate. That's why the laborers here are all so deathly quiet. They don't know when disaster will strike."
Nie Tian fell silent for a moment, then said, "They are all the unfortunate people of Black Cloud City, risking their lives here for their wives and children back in the city. The key cultivators of the Lingyan sect have exceptional skills. If they came here,
"Even if the mine shaft collapsed, they should be fine, right?" Nie Tian asked. "Reaching the Middle Heaven realm allows one to roam freely within the mine shaft. They wouldn't fear collapses or sudden changes." Nie Tian nodded lightly, then continued.
"But a key cultivator at the Middle Heaven realm wouldn't waste their time here for low-priced 4th-grade fire cloud stone. Powerful key cultivators are the most merciless. In their eyes, the Nie family doesn't amount to much.
The death of a few people wouldn't even register with them, let alone those unfortunate commoners employed by the Nie family. True key cultivators are inherently superior. Families like ours, the Nie family, only serve them similarly."
The mortals of Black Cloud City serve our Nie family. This world is inherently cruel. Neither you nor I can change it. There's only one way to rise above others, to avoid being enslaved, to control your own destiny. That is to become one of them."
Nie Tian's face was grave as he nodded heavily. "I will become a powerful key cultivator. Let's go to mine number 73. Nie Tian declared resolutely. Before long, under her guidance,
Nie Tian found himself inside a massive mine. Upon entering, he noticed that the surrounding rock walls were dotted with faintly shimmering, crimson points of light. "Fire cloud stones!" Nie Tian's spirits lifted. "This place is dangerous, don't waste time."
"Quickly try using that beast bone to absorb the flame power within the unmined fire cloud stones. We mustn't linger as soon as the blood in the bone clots, lest things take a turn for the worse," Nie Tian urged loudly. "Good."
Nie Tian immediately got to work. Chapter Yoda Twice collapse. Amidst Nie Tian's excited shouts, Nie Tian swiftly removed the beast bone and immediately placed it on a protruding piece of fire cloud stone on the stone wall.
A spark of flame flickered from the beast bone. Nie Tian gazed intently, a joyful expression appearing on his face. He said, "The beast bone is beginning to absorb the power of the flames. That's great!" Nie Tian exclaimed excitedly.
Both noticed that when the beast bone landed on the unmined fire cloud stone, the light within that stone rapidly dimmed. This meant that the beast bone, as they had anticipated, was absorbing the power of the flames. In a very short time the fire cloud stone,
which was mostly embedded in the stone wall, shattered into dull gray-white ordinary stone, its flame power completely drained. "Over there!" pointed towards a larger fire cloud stone, urging him. "Hurry!" Nie Tian didn't hesitate.
He immediately followed her instructions, removing the beast bone and placing it against another, larger fire cloud stone. "Over there, over there! There's a bigger one over there!" Nie Tian's expression was one of excitement.
The moment she saw the beast bone absorb the fiery power within the fire cloud stone, she selected a new target for him. Crack! Within the mine, fire cloud stone after fire cloud stone shattered, constantly absorbing the fiery power.
The beast bone quickly glowed red and translucent, radiating an unusual fiery luster. Tiny sparks appeared within the beast bone. In the dim mine, these sparks were like stars, shining brilliantly on the bone. Skreek! As the sparks emerged one by
Nie Tian gradually noticed that they were beginning to cluster together. "Here!" Nie Tian pointed to a fire cloud stone jutting out from the wall. "It's starting to coalesce." Growing excited, took the beast bone and placed it on that fire cloud stone.
Bang! A cluster of vibrant crimson flames suddenly ignited within the beast bone. Nie Tian, using his spiritual sense, perceived that the burning flames were the very drop of blood currently congealing. The moment he understood this, he felt a strange,
powerful suctions is emanating abruptly from that single drop of blood. Crack! Crack! Within mine 73. The fire cloud stones all emitted terrifying sounds of shattering. Countless sparks shot out from those fire cloud stones,
like myriads of fireflies, rushing towards the beast bone. Rumble, even more terrifying. A rumbling sound gradually emanated from other mines within the mountain. Accompanying the rumbling, countless sparks flew out from numerous fire cloud stones,
as if drawn by some unknown force, all converging towards mine 73 where Nie Tian was located. What's going on? What was happening? The mine's about to collapse. Everyone, evacuate the mine immediately. A major catastrophe is upon us.
Within each mine shaft, The collateral branches of the Nie family and the laborers still mining the fire cloud stone screamed in terror. Figure after figure rushed out of their respective mine shafts, fleeing frantically towards the outside. Tian! Oh no!
Too powerful, it's absorbing flame energy too quickly. The mine is about to collapse. Nie Tian panicked. However, at this moment, Nie Tian, clutching the beast bone, seemed not to have heard her call.
Nie Tian's entire consciousness and spirit seemed to be drawn into the beast bone, his pupils flickering with tiny sparks, filled with a mysterious profundity. Boom, boom, at the mouth of mine shaft 73. Chunks of rock fell, and in the blink of an eye,
The entire entrance was blocked. Nie Tian, who had intended to stop Nie Tian from absorbing the flames with the beast bone and lead him out of the mine, suddenly realized that they could no longer leave. The blocked mine entrance, the gaps in the rubble,
still allowed numerous sparks to seep through, continuing to converge towards the beast bone in Nie Tian's hand. The beast bone was still greedily, continuously absorbing the power of the flames from within the entire mountain, showing no sign of stopping.
Meanwhile, Nie Tian's consciousness and spirit had already drifted into that single drop of burning blood, once again entering that mysterious land of raging flames. In that unknown space, he saw the fiery light twisting and multiplying endlessly across the sky,
and saw clusters of incandescent flames gathering together, seeming to transform into a fiery dragon. Whoosh! Outside, the rich spiritual energy surrounding Lingyan Mountain, for some unknown reason, also quietly flowed towards the inconspicuous peak.
The vast white spiritual energy seeped into this 73rd mine from the entrance. Nie Tian, filled with anxious worry, suddenly felt that every breath she took contained abundant spiritual energy.
She sensed carefully and discovered that the spiritual energy around Nie Tian was even more astonishing, as if the most abundant spiritual energy in the mine was flowing into Nie Tian's body through his pores. Her bright eyes widened,
Fixed unwaveringly on Nie Tian, a wild joy warred with bewilderment and shock. The strange occurrences within the mine far surpassed her understanding, leaving her at a loss as to what to do, or how to act in a way that would benefit Nie Tian. At this moment,
the cave entrance was blocked by fallen rocks. Despite this, countless sparks still shot through the gaps between the stones, converging on the beast bone. She knew she couldn't leave for the time being, and could only passively accept the unfolding events.
At the same time, on the far side of Lingyan Mountain, within a smaller peak smaller than Lingyan Mountain, but taller than any other surrounding it, a gaunt old man, clad in coarse linen, crafting a spirit artifact in a stone chamber,
suddenly set down his work. Strange, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, it's undergoing a sudden change, he murmured, before abruptly sitting cross-legged and gently closing his eyes, a blurry shadow, emanating from the crown of his head.
Like a ghostly apparition, abruptly leaving the stone chamber. That unclear shadow, like a reflection in water, flickered in and out of existence. Unreal, yet seemingly chasing the flow of spiritual energy.
Drifting all the way to the small mountain where the Nie family mined fire cloud stone, the shadow slipped into the mine, following the path deeper within. Soon, the shadowy figure arrived at the entrance of mine 73 where Nie Tian was located.
It slipped through a narrow gap between the rocks and silently entered the mine. Upon entering the mine, the shadowy figure became even more indistinct, almost invisible to the naked eye, in the shadowy corner of the mine.
The figure glanced around before focusing all its attention on Nie Tian and the beast bone in his hand. Inside the mine, Nie Tian, standing beside Nie Tian, remained completely unaware. Rumble, the entire mountain seemed to tremble gently.
Above Nie Tian in the mine's ceiling, large suspended rocks began to crack and fall. The shadowy figure in the darkness looked up at the falling rocks and seemed to flick its hand a few times. Nie Tian, who had already sensed something,
watched the falling rocks in terror, her heart filled with despairing cries. Strangely, the rocks that were about to crush her and Nie Tian seemed to be drawn by some unseen force, veering off to fall around the edges of the mine. She
stood unharmed beside Nie Tian, as if constantly protected by a divine being. Much later, no more flames flickered,
as if all the fiery power of the fire cloud stones within the mountain had been sucked dry by the beast bone. Nie Tian, his finger still resting on the beast bone, remained oblivious to the earth, shattering changes in the mine, as if drifting in a dream.
The prolonged tremors in the mine gradually subsided. Around the edges of the cavern, fallen boulders formed towering piles. Yet, where she and Nie Tian stood, not a single pebble had fallen. This was utterly baffling,
prompting a silent prayer of thanks to the ancestors of the Nie family. After a long time, the beast bone in Nie Tian's hand returned to its dark brown hue. Nie Tian, who had been lost in a trance, slowly came to his senses.
He opened his eyes and his first words were, "The drop of blood within the beast bone has finally solidified." The shadowy figure in the darkness, upon hearing this, rippled like water. It's seemingly shaken. Chapter 021 Rapid Progress.
At that very moment, Nie Tian noticed the dense spiritual energy that had gathered in the mine rapidly dissipating. It seemed that the massive accumulation of spiritual energy was solely due to the beast bone and Nie Tian.
The moment the beast bone returned to normal and Nie Tian's consciousness withdrew, the miracle vanished. Nie Tian, clutching the beast bone, his expression shifting, a look of ecstatic joy suddenly appearing on his face, said on.
I've reached the 6th level of Q refinement. What? Nie Tian shrieked. Nie Tian took a deep breath, squinting his eyes as he carefully sensed again, then said with a confident tone.
The spiritual energy gathered in my Danshan spiritual sea has reached the profound level of the 6th stage of Q refinement. Really? Nie Tian's face was a picture of disbelief. Nie Tian nodded emphatically.
It must be the protection of the Nie family's ancestors, Nie Tian rejoiced, pointing to the pile of fallen rocks beside them. Just now, the mine collapsed, with rocks falling everywhere, but only this area, not a single stone has struck us.
It's completely illogical. You simply held the beast bone, contemplated it, and then gathered terrifying amounts of spiritual energy from heaven and earth, leaping directly to the 6th level of Qi refinement. Aside from the beast bone's own strangeness,
it must be due to the blessings of our ancestors that allowed you to make such astounding progress. Perhaps. Nie Tian smiled, unconcerned with Nie Tian's superstitious belief. In the darkness of the mine, a shadowy figure silently listened to their conversation.
Its gaze fixed on the beast bone in Nie Tian's hand. Rumble. At that moment, a tremendous rumbling tremor echoed again from within the mountain. The entire mountain's fire cloud stone flames had been absorbed by the beast bone,
causing a massive transformation in the dwarf mountain, destabilizing its structure. Damn it, Nie Tian instantly snapped out of her elation. Gazing at the mine entrance blocked by falling rocks, the joy in her eyes was quickly replaced by fear.
We must get out of here immediately or we'll be buried alive, Nie Tian urged anxiously. Nie Tian turned, glanced at the pile of rubble blocking the entrance, and his anxiety rose.
He no longer had the heart to examine the single drop of blood within the beast bone. Quick, move those rocks immediately! We must leave as fast as possible, Nie Tian commanded. Nie Tian nodded, ready to act at once. Rumble!
Another loud crash echoed from another mine shaft. Nie Tian and Nie Tian exchanged a look, understanding that the other mine shafts had likely also suffered catastrophic changes. They realized that remaining in the mountain's belly meant only death awaited them.
Just as they were about to begin, another tremendous roar erupted. They distinctly felt the entire mountain tremble. In the shadows, a shadowy figure, imperceptible even to Nie Tian, noticed the perilous situation. He looked towards the mine entrance,
his unseen hands manipulating and adjusting something. The spiritual energy flowing from the mine entrance seemed to be meticulously manipulated by his actions. Kaka! Chunks of rubble blocking the mine entrance were pulled outward by an invisible force,
rolling away. In a short time, the completely blocked mine entrance opened a passage. Nie Tian and Nie Tian, who had been watching the mine entrance, suddenly realized that the problem plaguing them had been inexplicably solved. Big Aunt.
Nie Tian scratched his head, also feeling a little suspicious. Could it be that we're secretly protected by our ancestors? The mountain tremors perfectly clearing the rubble from their entrance was illogical. Even Nie Tian, a non-believer,
was shaken by the continuous anomalies. It must be! Nie Tian's eyes shone brightly. Don't dawdle. Let's get out. Without waiting for Nie Tian to reply, she grabbed his arm, pulling him along the miraculously open passage, hurrying towards the exit of the mine.
Along the way, many stone paths blocked by rubble inexplicably opened up, with the mountain's tremors creating passages just wide enough for the two of them. Their escape was surprisingly smooth, fleeing the collapsing mountain amidst the giant tremors. Miss.
Young master, how did you get out? At the cave entrance, Nashang, the Nie family steward, stammered as he watched Nie Tian and Nie Tian emerge, covered in dust. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable! We thought the young miss had perished in the mine.
That it was absolutely impossible for her to get out. Heaven protects the young miss. Many anxious Nie family members, along with the terrified laborers, sincerely congratulated Nie Tian and Nie Tian as they burst from the mine. Once outside,
Nie Tian finally breathed a sigh of relief. After putting some distance between themselves and the trembling mountain, she said, "It was our ancestors looking out for us." I think so too. Nie Shang's expression was strange.
He felt Nie Tian and Nie Tian's survival was nothing short of a miracle. After a few words of agreement, his face fell, his voice bitter. Over a dozen family members, and even more laborers employed by the family, are lost forever in the mine.
This is a terrible disaster. Soon as these words left his mouth, Nie Tian's face fell, and she said solemnly, "This matter will have a significant impact on the family." Nie Shang nodded with a bitter smile.
Our Nie family's primary task is to help Lingyan sect mine the Huoyan stone from this mountain peak. With this enormous change, we'll struggle to continue mining in the short term. We're likely to fall short of the required Huoyan stone tribute this year.
And I fear Lingyan sect will hold us accountable. What are we going to do? If we lose Lingyan sect's trust, How will our family survive in Haiyan City? We're doomed. The patriarch has just taken office.
And this huge problem will surely bring down heavy punishment upon us. Oh no! The many surviving members of the Nie family panicked, each lost and unsure of what to do. Miss, what do you think? Nie Tian looked at Nie Tian pitifully.
He was merely a member of the Nie family's side branch, only rising to become the mine manager during Nie Donghai's tenure. After Nie Beichuan became patriarch, he'd been trying to replace him with his own loyalists.
Nie Beichuan had been looking for a reason to dismiss him, and now that this disaster had struck the mine, losing his position was the least of his worries.
He feared Nie Beichuan would seize this opportunity to launch an attack and hold him responsible for even more serious charges. This is a natural disaster, it shouldn't concern you. I'll explain the situation truthfully when I return to the family.
Don't worry too much, Nie Tian consoled him. Difficult. Nie Tian sighed. He knew very well that after Nie Beichuan's ascension, Nie Donghai and Nie Tian's father and daughter were in a precarious situation within the family. Nie Beichuan, eager to make his mark,
would absolutely not let go of this golden opportunity. He would inevitably be made an example of. Nie Tian and I will go back first. I will do my best to help you with things here, Nie Tian promised. Alright? For now, don't make any rash moves.
Wait until the tremors completely subside before entering, retrieving the bodies of the victims, and reopening the stone path to continue mining the fire cloud stone. Habat instructed.
Even she didn't know that all the upheaval was caused by the beast bone in Leitea's possession. She also didn't know that all the fire cloud stone stored within the mountain peak had been drained of its fiery power by the beast bone,
resulting in that single drop of blood. Aka kept one hand in his waistband, caressing the beast bone, staring blankly at the still, trembling mountain peak, his expression equally grave. Only he sensed that, after this incident,
the fire cloud stones of the entire mountain peak had turned into ordinary stones, probably never to be mined again. We returned to the city. Nie Tian gave Nie Shang a few more instructions before taking Nie Tian and heading towards Black Cloud City.
Shortly after they left, a ripple-like, invisible phantom quietly flitted out of the mine entrance. It gazed in the direction they had gone for a moment before silently drifting back to Lingyan Mountain. Chapter 22 Desperate Situation. Big Aunt, I feel.
From now on, the family will probably no longer be able to mine fire cloud stones from that mine, Nie Tian said after a long silence, finally unable to contain his conjecture during their return journey to Black Cloud City. As dusk approached,
the evening glow pierced through the gaps in the dense trees, stubbornly illuminating the stone path in the woods. Nie Tian, hurrying on their journey, suddenly stopped when she heard his words. She stared at Nie Tian with a dubious look,
her eyes gradually turning serious. What are you saying? The fire cloud stones in that mine have been mined by our family for many years. Not long ago, the cultivators of Lingyan sect re-examined it and said that, at our rate,
we could mine for at least another few decades. How could it suddenly stop? The fire cloud stones in the mine were the lifeblood of the Nie family. It was through the mining of fire cloud stones that the Nie family received the protection of the Lingyan sect.
Once the Nie family lost this function, they would be utterly useless to the Lingyan sect. Even now, with Nie Beichuan as clan leader and she and Nie Donghai ostracized within the clan,
she was absolutely unwilling to see the entire Nie family abandoned by the Lingyan sect. I'm sorry. Nie Tian lowered his head, took out the beast bone, and said apologetically, it's all because of this.
The flame power needed to condense that drop of blood within it came from all the Huoyan stones in the mine. It successfully condensed a drop of blood, but drained all the flame power from the Huoyan stones in the mine.
I really think all the Huoyan stones have become ordinary stones. Even if they are mined, there won't be a trace of flame power left in those stones. To condense a single drop of blood, it absorbed all the flame power of the Huoyan stones. This
is impossible. Nie Tian was shocked. That's how I feel. Nie Tian chuckled wryly. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Nie Tian shook her head repeatedly, looking as if he was overthinking things. If you don't believe me, then forget it, Nine said angrily.
I'm not arguing with you. It's getting dark. We should return to Black Cloud City early. Nie Tian looked ahead. Such a big thing happened in the mine. I need to inform your grandfather and let him prepare himself. All right then, Tian said no more. Afterwards,
the two stopped arguing and headed straight for Black Cloud City. A quarter of an hour later, just as they were about to pass through the dense forest, Nie Tian suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Nie Tian asked. Puzzled, Nie Tian's expression turned gray.
Her breathing became of the spiritual energy, strong enough for even Nie Tian to sense, rippled outwards from her like waves in water. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The leaves in the woods stirred without a breath of wind. Nie Tian!
Turn back immediately and run to Lingyan Mountain as fast as you can, Nie Tian shouted. Splash! The silver bracelets on her arms suddenly flew off, releasing a bright silver light as they shot towards the back of two large trees ahead. Clang, clang!
From behind those two trees, the sound of metal clashing suddenly echoed, accompanied by two low, sinister laughs. The moment those two laughs rang out, Nie Tian's face changed drastically, instantly realizing something was terribly wrong. Go, Nie Tian groaned.
Then let out a loud scream. She turned to Nie Tian, her eyes filled with terror, her expression frantic. Woo! Several silver bracelets flew from her hand, spinning, and shot out from behind the two large trees at an even faster speed.
Following this, two men in blue robes emerged, their smiles not reaching their eyes. Run! Where could he run? One of them coldly glanced at Nie Tian. Bang! At that,
the silver bracelets slammed into a wall of water that Nie Tian had condensed with her spiritual energy. Nie Tian's delicate body recoiled 2 steps. The silver bracelets hung on the water wall like pendants, not immediately falling to the ground.
she reached out and retrieved the silver bracelets one by one, her face pale as she looked at the two men in blue. I've seen you in Black Cloud City. She clearly remembered that among the many strangers who had lingered around the Nie family several months ago.
These two were present. She immediately realized that the reason for their appearance here was undoubtedly Wan Chuying. Because of the dispute in front of the Lingbao Pavilion. They're dead anyway, so we brothers aren't afraid to tell you.
The other man in blue grinned. It's her. Nie Tian gritted her teeth. Second brother. You go kill that brat first, leave this woman to me. The blue-robed man, a thin scar tracing his eye, let out a strange smile.
Madame Yuan instructed me not to let her die easily. A price has been paid and a debt must be settled. I must satisfy Madame Yuan. The other man chuckled and nodded. Big brother, I'll find you later after I kill the kid. Good boy. Ha ha!
The two hilly not taking Nie Tian and Nie Tian seriously. In their eyes, Nie Tian and Nie Tian were already as good as dead, as just a child. Nie Tian pleaded. Whatever Yuan Chuying paid you.
I'll give you 3 times as much once I return to my family. The Nie family still has resources. Please believe me! A previous probe had made it clear to her that the 2 blue-robed men were at least at the mid-level of the Haoshan cultivation stage.
And both possessed extremely obvious killing intent. This meant they weren't simply cultivators who dedicated themselves to cultivation, but rather ruthless killers honed in the midst of slaughter.
She knew perfectly well that she was no match for either of them. My brother and I have received favors from the Yuan family in the past. We repay our kindness. The scarred man chuckled, stroking his chin. Besides, I quite like your look.
With those words, Nie Tian knew escape was impossible, and she screamed, Nie Tian, run ding! She flung her hands out, the silver bracelets colliding with a shrill, piercing shriek.
They shot towards the 2 men opposite with terrifying speed. So the Nie family is truly past its prime, the leading man said, shaking his head as he watched the silver bracelets approaching. The daughter of the Nie family, the former wife of Yun Zhigu.
And she uses such inferior weapons, he spoke. He raised a bronze, rhomboid shield. Woo! Waves of reddish-yellow light bloomed from its surface. Intricate, delicate patterns became brilliantly clear as the light intensified. Gravity surge.
The leading man snorted coldly. The gravitational field around him seemed to increase manifold in an instant. The whistling silver bracelets, caught in the drastically altered gravity, plummeted towards the earth. Second brother.
There's still a chance someone might pass by. We need to finish this quickly. Big brother. I'll kill that brat now! Another man agreed, turning away from Nie Tian and rushing towards Nie Tian.
The silver bracelets flying towards him, due to the sudden change in gravity, were about to fall to the ground, posing no threat to him. Nie Tian, run! Nie Tian screamed frantically, however as the man flashed towards him.
Although Nie Tian's eyes burned with raging anger, his body remained motionless, with only the cultivation of the 4th level of key refinement. Under my elder brother Xuanhuan shield's 5-fold gravity field, he can't possibly escape.
The man rushing towards Nie Tian said with a cold and mocking sneer. Hearing this, Nie Tian seemed to despair instantly, screaming hysterically. I'll never let you get away with this! Huff! Nie Tian breathed heavily.
His inner chew frantically gathering in his legs. Struggling with all his might against the suddenly increased gravity from deep within the earth. Trying to move his body, but the ground beneath his feet had become a giant magnet, holding him fast.
He exerted all his strength, yet he couldn't shake off the earth's pull. His feet feeling as if crushed by a giant stone. Unable to move, a volatile mix of despair and resentful frenzy swelled within him, intensifying with the man's approach at that moment.
He fought the beast spawn suddenly grow scorching hot. Chapter Zolo 23 leaving no trace. Just give up, you little brat. The blue-robed man, his steps light and quick as he approached Nie Tian, slowly raised his hand. Crack, crack.
His hand instantly gathered a dense, icy spiritual force, as if suddenly frozen solid. A bone-chilling coldness emanated from his hand, making Nie Tian, who was still 3 meters away, feel as if had fallen into an ice cave. Woo!
He pointed at Nie Tian from afar, wisps of icy white mist, like slender white snakes, coiling towards Nie Tian's body. with the gravity around him drastically increasing, already struggling to move.
Found himself in even more perilous circumstances as the icy mist attacked. From a distance, the booming sounds of clashing weapons and the scarred man's boisterous laughter echoed continuously. Without looking, Nie Tian knew that Nine, like himself.
Strength! I need strength! Nie Tian cried out in his heart, as if an invisible force, somewhere in the depths, heard his call. He first felt the burning heat of the beast bone in his hand. The next moment,
the scorching heat of the bone spread from his palm to his entire body. He clearly perceived an astonishing wave of heat, like molten lava, flowing through his meridians and suddenly reaching his feet.
He suddenly felt as if he were immersed in a raging inferno. Rah! A low growl from within the beast bone's blood echoed thunderously in his mind. In an instant,
the terrifying gravitational force from the depths of the earth seemed to lose all its effect on him. His body, which had been as if nailed to the ground, suddenly moved back 2 steps. The blue-clothed man,
whose icy hand was about to land on Nie Tian's chest, suddenly found that Nie Tian was moving freely, and could not help but let out a soft gasp. Instantly, mist swirling around his fingers, roared towards Nie Tian. In Nie Tian's eyes,
it seemed as if dozens of white ice serpents were about to engulf him. As the white ice serpents danced, the extreme cold energy had already permeated the surrounding space, turning it into a land of frost. Skreek, however,
seemed to be swallowed by a fiery energy, evaporating into more white mist. Nie Tian let out a soft gasp, subconsciously lowering his head to glance at the beast bone. The beast bone had become as hot as a burning brand.
Too hot for him to hold any longer. The single drop of blood within the bone subtly revealed itself, resembling a miniature sun erupting with raging flames. Rah! Another roar, audible only to him,
echoed from the drop of blood, a roar filled with impatience and rage. And Nie Tian seemed to understand the meaning behind that roar. In a flash of inspiration, he hurled the beast bone with all his might at the coldly impassive man in blue.
The moment the bone left his hand, abruptly transformed into a crimson flame, trailing a long fiery tail that vaguely resembled a dragon, roaring towards the man in blue. Skreek!
The white ice serpents that had been lunging at Tian dissipated into white mist the instant the crimson flame passed by. The man in blue, radiating icy spiritual power, watched his meticulously crafted ice serpents vanish one by one.
His expression drastically changing, however. Before he could react, the crimson flame, once a beast bone, had already reached him. At that very moment, Nie Tian, who had been closely watching him, noticed a large amount of water vapor rising from his body.
Nie Tian clearly saw the fear and despair flash across his eyes. Bang! The beast bone struck his chest, and sparks of fire flickered from his front. In an instant, the sparks blossomed into tiny clusters of crimson flames. These tiny flames,
as if possessing their own consciousness, darted and danced across his body. The man didn't even manage a scream. His entire body, like a chunk of ice thrown into a furnace, melted instantly, even the blood vaporizing. In mere seconds, the assailant,
moments before so menacing, had utterly vanished. The ground where it stood showed no trace of his existence, no corpse, no blood. Only a glowing red beast bone remained on that patch of earth. Clusters of crimson flames, seemingly sentient,
coalesced from all directions back into the bone. The fivefold gravity emanating from deep within the earth around the bone seemed forcibly reversed, returning to normal. Nie Tian's expression was one of sheer terror. He stared blankly at the beast bone,
subconsciously licking his lips. A cultivator proficient in ice magic, at least at the mid-innate stage, had been completely incinerated by the flames within the bone, leaving not a single drop of blood behind. The beast bone's ferocity was almost unbelievable.
Had always found the bone peculiar, especially after it absorbed the fiery power of all the fire cloud stones in the mountain's depths, finally condensing that single drop of blood. This further solidified his belief in the bone's extraordinary nature.
But witnesser stood he had vastly underestimated its terrifying might. Puff! As he stood dumbfounded, Nie Tian, not far away, spat out a mouthful of blashish listless. A blue-clad man, a scar marring his eye,
a smile playing on his lips, shield in hand, slowly advanced toward her, leaning against a large tree. Nie Tian, her hands gripping 2 silver bracelets, seemed to know escape was impossible, and involuntarily turned her head towards Nie Tian.
She wanted to know if Nie Tian had already fallen victim before her. Little Tian. When she saw that Nie Tian was still alive, and that the assassin who had attacked him had inexplicably vanished, she was somewhat bewildered. The man,
who had been about to continue his attack, noticed her strange expression and looked towards Nie Tian in confusion. His expression was one of astonishment, followed by an angry shout. Lower! I told you to hurry up. Where the hell have you been?
And hadn't paid attention to Nie Tian. In his eyes, Nie Tian, trapped by 5 times his weight, should have been instantly killed. No surprises were expected, so there was nothing to see.
The man who cultivated ice-type spiritual power, after being struck by the beast bone, was almost completely consumed within seconds, leaving not a single drop of blood behind. So when he looked, he found nothing, only that his brother had left little Tian.
While that man's gone, escape, Nie Tian, after a moment of hesitation, suddenly reacted and hurriedly warned him again. She didn't know what had just happened, but in her view,
the man's sudden disappearance was Nie Tian's only chance of escape. Second brother, where the hell did you go? The leader's face was grim as he looked around anxiously, his impatience growing. Has got a stomach ache, urgently needs to relieve himself.
Nie Tian suddenly replied, then walked towards the beast bone. He hesitated for a moment before slowly reaching out and picking up the bone, now restored to a dark brown color. Throughout the process, he was extremely cautious,
afraid that a spark might suddenly ignite from the bone and engulf him. The terrifying scene of the man's death had left him traumatized, fearing the beast bone might change again. Fortunately,
the restored bone showed no unusual signs and he successfully grasped it. The moment he held the bone, for some reason, he felt a surge of intense confidence. He felt he could control the beast bone. Run! Nie Tian was practically frantic, in her eyes.
Nie Tian was courting death, regardless of the reason. Since the attacker was gone, he should have seized the opportunity to escape. Every second he stayed, his chances of survival diminished. Instead of fleeing, he was wasting time.
She wanted to slap some sense into him. I'm not running. Nie Tian clutched the beast bone, walking towards her step by step, his expression surprisingly calm. Boy, the blue-clothed man, with a scar near his eye,
finally noticed that Nie Tian was no longer affected by the gravitational field. He was actually walking towards him. He wasn't stupid.
Nie Tian's composure and his ability to break free from the gravitational field indicated that something strange and inexplicable had happened. Otherwise, his brother wouldn't have disappeared without a trace. Uncle, I just said.
He had diarrhea and went to the small woods, Nie Tian said solemnly. Little brat, don't play games with me! The man's face darkened. He stopped looking at Nie Tian and focused on Nie Tian. I don't care what tricks you're playing. Once I catch,
I'll break every bone in your body and find out what happened. Times gravity. Chapter Zola 2-4 reduced to ashes. Crack. In the forest, branches snapped one after another, falling towards the earth. A bird that happened to fly by,
unable to withstand the pull of gravity, also plummeted to the ground. Centered on the man in blue, the earth within a 100-meter radius instantly transformed into a giant magnet, enveloping everything tangible within its grasp. Nie Tian
felt a powerful pull on her lower back, her body visibly sinking. 10 times gravity. Her face was filled with shock and horror, her gaze fixated on Nie Tian with anxious fear, secretly cursing his recklessness. The man in blue,
wielding the Xuanhuan shield, grinned ferociously, stepping closer to Nie Tian. Little bastard, let's see if you can even take another step, under 10 times the gravity. Nie Tian's previously free and easy movements came to an abrupt halt, furrowing his brow.
He secretly felt a surge of warmth emanating from the soles of his feet, rapidly gathering strength. Waves of heat flowed from the beast bone he clutched tightly, coursing through his meridians and down into his feet. The beast bone,
which had just returned to its normal state, throbbed with renewed heat, once again becoming scorching hot. Sensing the bone's rising temperature, Nie Tian's confidence inexplicably surged. He felt no panic at the approaching figure. He didn't rush to act.
Only the bulging veins on the back of his hand gripping the beast bone betraying his tension. The man roared, wielding the Xuanhuan shield before hurling it forcefully towards Nie Tian's head. Whew!
The Xuanhuan shield flew through the air, tracing a graceful, dark yellow arc, plummeting with immense force. An even more astonishing gravitational field emanated from the Xuanhuan shield, causing the space around Nie Tian to seem to sink abruptly.
Nie Tian cried out in alarm. At that moment, the beast bone in Nie Tian's hand glowed crimson hot, like a branding iron, releasing a furious surge of fiery energy. Go! Nie Tian instantly hurled the beast bone.
As the beast bone whistled through the air, the heat concentrated at his feet exploded in an instant. The terrifying gravitational pressure from the earth, once unbearable, seemed to lessen. Nie Tian's body, with a shift in his footing, suddenly shot forward.
He narrowly avoided the Xuanhuan shield's attack. Raw! A ferocious roar, audible only to him, erupted from his soul. He clearly saw the beast bone transform into a raging inferno, completely engulfing the man.
The tenfold gravitational field that bound the heavens and earth vanished in that instant. The Xuanhuan shield, deprived of its master's continuous infusion of power, plummeted to the ground behind Nie Tian.
The wielder of the Xuanhuan shield vanished swiftly within the surging flames. In mere seconds, the one engulfed by the raging inferno disappeared without a trace. His clothes, body and breath all seemed to turn to ash as the flames consumed him.
In the shortest of moments, the man left not a single thing behind in the world. The searing flames, born from the beast bone, quickly converged and coalesced, finally reforming into dark brown bone fragments. Not far away, Nie Tian,
who moments before had been filled with despair, stared blankly in this direction, her expression dazed. She unconsciously closed her eyes, then opened them, trying to make sense of the scene before her. After repeating this several times in her eyes,
Nie Tian still stood where he was, while the ferocious attacker had vanished without a trace. Her mind was a blank. After a long moment, she seemed to gradually come to her senses, murmuring softly, "Dead, that person, was burned to death, burned to ashes." Tap.
with gravity restored, Nie Tian walked briskly to the beast bone, crouched down, and retrieved the bone fragment. My precious! Nie Tian played with the beast bone, unable to contain his delight. Only then did Nie Tian fully emerge from her daze.
She cried out in alarm, "Be careful with that bone." Nie Tian looked up, raising the bone high towards her, a broad smile on his face. "Big aunt, it's my treasure. How could it harm me?" "Your treasure? You can control it!" Nie Tian exclaimed.
Nie Tian nodded emphatically. Of course. Pausing, he pointed behind him, explaining, "That guy's younger brother, he was also burned to death by it. Not a single drop of blood left. Now I understand why everyone values a good spirit weapon so highly."
A powerful spirit weapon really can turn the tide of battle. Before, he hadn't paid much attention to the spirit weapons that cultivators so painstakingly pursued. Because of his exceptionally strong physique,
He had repeatedly relied on his powerful body in battles with Nie Hong and the others, leading him to believe that he only needed to focus on his cultivation. He hadn't believed that a suitable spirit weapon could truly play a crucial role in battle.
but this time, facing certain death, the beast bone had helped him kill 2 people, completely changing his previous perspective. He suddenly realized that possessing such an extraordinary spiritual artifact was truly a stroke of immense luck.
Put that thing away carefully. Nie Tian took a deep breath, the shock still evident on her face. But her eyes had regained their clarity and composure. This place wasn't safe. There was no guarantee that Xuanhuan, that bitch, hadn't made further arrangements.
"We can study that beast bone carefully at home. We need to leave now." "Oh," Nie Tian replied obediently. "Besides the Xuanhuan shield, did those 2 leave anything else?" Nie Tian asked. Nie Tian shook his head. "No."
Everything was burned to ashes, nothing was left. Such a domineering spiritual artifact. Nie Tian's eyes showed awe. Then she muttered regretfully in a low voice, "Such a pity. I'm a little short on funds lately. It would have been nice to have more loot."
Saying this, she quickly got up, picked up the remaining Xuanhuan shield, and unceremoniously put it into her waistband. Understood. Home. Nie Tian, who had killed 2 people through the beast bone, showed no initial panic at his first kills,
but rather a certain excitement. He repeatedly took out the beast bone along the way, handling it lovingly and without letting it go. Every time Nie Tian turned her head to see him playing with the beast bone,
she felt nervous and subconsciously kept a few steps away from him. In Nie Tian's eyes, the beast bone seemed poised to transform into a raging inferno, a ferocious demon ready to devour and incinerate any living thing it encountered. Before nightfall,
Nie Tian entered the city with Nie Tian and quickly returned to the Nie family residence. Back at the Nie residence, Nie Tian urged him to use the beast bone with caution. She then immediately went to find Nie Donghai,
recounting the disaster in the mine and their subsequent ordeal. "Xuanhuan!" Upon hearing of their perilous encounter, Nie Donghai trembled with rage, his eyes blazing with fury. "That woman is too audacious!" Over a minor
"I will absolutely pursue this matter." Nie Tian shook her head, advising him, "Forget it, they're both dead anyway. After this, she shouldn't cause any more trouble. Father, you're no longer the head of the family."
The mine disaster will leave the family scrambling for a while. It's best not to make things worse. Let's focus on how well answer to the Lingyan sect. How long until the mine is back to normal? Nie Donghai said in a low voice. "I don't know."
A wry smile on her face. "It's my fault. I never anticipated that Shaoshan's beast bone could cause such a cataclysmic event in the mine. In my opinion, it'll take at least a couple of months before mining can resume."
"We won't be able to provide the Lingyan sect with the required amount of fire cloud stone this year. You and Shaoshan went to the mine, and many people saw you. Your second uncle will undoubtedly blame you both for everything." The Donghai.
"Unfortunately, I'm no longer the head of the Nie family. I'll have to give him an explanation. Father, I've caused you trouble again." Nie Tian lowered her head.
Little Tian being able to raise his cultivation to the 6th level of Q refinement in the mine is, in my eyes, more important than anything. Nie Donghai's expression turned serious, then he added, "And that strange beast bone.
The fact that he possesses it and can unleash such astonishing power makes up for everything. That beast bone is truly too powerful. I fear little Tian won't be able to control it," Nie Tian said with lingering fear. "I believe he can," Nie Donghai said firmly.
At that moment, in his own room, Nie Tian took out the beast bone again. He sat on the bed, holding the bone, his mind sinking into it. Chapter Odu 25. Read a different place. Screech! Within the beast bone.
The drop of congealed blood suddenly ignited after Nie Tian's consciousness entered. Within the blood, a strand of Nie Tian's soul clearly saw wisps of fire, suddenly intertwining and twisting, vaguely coalescing into a strange beast mark.
The beast mark was dragon-shaped, constantly shifting, filled with mystery. Nie Tian let out a soft gasp and tried to sync his soul as if had triggered some secret mechanism. The beast bone suddenly flew from his palm, hovering silently before his chest,
burning with an intense flame. In an instant, his soul returned to his mind from within the beast bone. He stared unblinkingly at the beast bone. Sha! Streams of fire swirled around the beast bone, which began to rotate slowly,
seemingly generating a terrifying suction force. Seconds later, a fiery tunnel formed from the beast bone and the swirling flames. Crack! Crack! The moment the fiery tunnel appeared, strange sounds echoed through the surrounding space,
giving birth to streaks of colorful spatial fissures. Inside the room, the tea set on the stone table and the clothes on the bed, caught in the suction, were suddenly pulled into the spatial fissures and vanished in an instant. A moment later,
even the stone table and the stone slabs on the floor were abruptly sucked into the fissures. Creak! Creak! The bed beneath Nie Tian groaned under the immense pulling force, as if about to be dragged into the spatial rifts with him.
A surge of intense fear gripped him. He seemed to know that once pulled into those bizarrely appearing spatial fissures, he would never see his grandfather or Nie Tian again. Just as fear threatened to overwhelm him, and he was about to cry out for help,
the flaming aperture, like the maw of a monstrous beast, swallowed him whole. At that moment, the burning light of the aperture shrank rapidly, instantly transforming into a pinpoint of fire, no bigger than a grain of rice.
The pinpoint flickered twice before vanishing completely from his room. Whoosh! The spatial rifts, their sucking power intensified, carried away everything within the house before gradually sealing themselves.
After the flaming aperture and the bizarrely flickering spatial rifts disappeared without a trace, the small room returned to its tranquil state. Only Nie Tian, along with the stone tables, chairs, and wooden bed, were gone without a trace. Little Tian,
are you asleep? Nie Tian's voice called from outside a short while later. After Nie Tian explained the terrifying aspects of the beast bone to Nie Donghai, while he verbally claimed to trust Nie Tian's control over it, he was still uneasy. Therefore,
he and Nie Tian came together, hoping to use his experience and perspective to once again investigate the mysteries of the bone. Nie Tian called for a while, but when Nie Tian didn't respond, she couldn't help but forcefully push open the door. Ah!
Seeing it completely empty and devoid of everything, she immediately screamed. Veins bulged on Nie Donghai's forehead. Without a second thought, he began to end family, audacious and heaven-defying.
Had dared to abduct Little Tian from the Nie family. He naturally assumed that after discovering the disappearance of the two attackers, Xuanhuan had arranged for stronger individuals to take action. Father, what do we do? What should we do?
Nie Tian cried out, distraught. The Yun family and the Yuan family must immediately release Little Tian. I'll go find Lauer right now. He's the current head of the Nie family. If he doesn't step up to protect Little Tian, I won't let him off.
Nie Donghai threw down these words, then stormed off to find Nie Beichuan, wanting to get Nie Tian back immediately. Xuanhuan! If anything happens to Little Tian, I will never rest until I've taken my revenge. Nie Xuanhui, an unknown world,
where the spiritual energy was unbelievably abundant. 1,000-meter-long bone dragon, with 8 heads arranged in an octagonal pattern, its heads facing a dilapidated altar, ancient and blood-stained. The altar seemed eroded by countless ages. Suddenly,
a spark flickered from the heart of the altar, expanding and rapidly growing into a blazing inferno. Bang! A child's figure flew out of the flames, crashing heavily to the ground. Plop! The next moment,
the enormous ball of fire contracted into a small bone fragment, falling beside the child. Nie Tian, dizzy and disoriented, lay sprawled on the altar, his body aching from the fall. What in the world? He stared at the gray sky,
his consciousness slowly returning. A moment ago he had been in his room. He only remembered the fiery vortex formed by the evolving beast bones swallowing him whole, and now, he was here, lying on the altar.
He distinctly felt the gravity here was even stronger than the tenfold gravitational field generated by the Xuanhuan shield. His back pressed hard against the cold. With a tremendous effort, he slowly sat upright.
The spiritual energy here was incredibly dense, at least 10 times richer than that of Lingyan Mountain. As he breathed, he felt the ambient spiritual energy, like trickling streams, flowing into the spiritual sea of his Danshan. His spirit soared.
His curiosity piqued as he began to examine his surroundings. Dragon heads! 8 enormous dragon heads! He saw them at once. 8 colossal dragon heads, like miniature mountains, distributed around him.
The 8 heads were devoid of flesh. Only grey-white skulls remained. There were no eyes in the sockets. The empty eye sockets all faced him, seemingly silently appraising him, sending a shiver down his spine. He quickly looked away.
Following the line of the dragon heads, He then saw that the bodies of the 8 giant dragons stretched out towards the earth a kilometer away. Further in the distance, beneath the gloomy sky, seemed to lie mountains, each as tall as Lingyan Mountain.
He stared intently, then trembled violently, his entire body freezing. What had initially appeared as mountain peaks, upon closer inspection, revealed themselves to be gigantic arms! These colossal arms were a dark yellowish.
Some clenched their fists towards the heavens, seeming to radiate boundless fury. Others spread their fingers wide, as if attempting to grasp the sky. Still others formed strange hand seals, as if containing the ultimate principles of the universe.
Each enormous arm, viewed from a distance, resembled a towering peak thrusting towards the heavens. The other ends of these arms were like the roots of ancient trees, buried deep within the earth.
It was as if the true body of the arm's owner lay within the earth, struggling to break free from its entombment and soar into the clouds. Even just the arms visible above ground were as massive as mountains. Nie Tian could imagine how enormous the main body,
buried beneath the earth, must be. 1, 2, 3, 32. He counted and discovered that there were at least 32 giant arms within his line of sight.